Remembrance Weekend.
A familiar old orange face returns to the front line of American politics.
First Labour budget in over 14 years and a new Tory leader.
All that and more on this week's Recce Report. Stay tuned.
Good evening, fine folks. I am former British Army Corporal Cliff Purvis.
And I'm former British Army Warrant Officer Russ Denny. Hello again.
And welcome to this month's Recce Report. Right, Russ, as always.
It's been, honestly, mate, I'm surprised that we even need to come on. There's literally nothing. The world is the safest it's ever been. There's nothing happening. And I need to up my meds clearly because, yeah, what the hell's going on, mate? First of all, it's the 11th of November. It is Remembrance Day, where we take time. Certainly, we did a 2-minute silence earlier in my work, which was nice to see. Did you go to any of the parades yesterday, Cliff?
Yes, I was at the local one in the village here yesterday. It was very well attended. And was nicely conducted, I must say, by the Padre. And it's good to see some kids there as well, learning about what it's all about. I mean, we can all discuss the politics of war, the rights and wrongs to war, but these people didn't have the option. They were volunteered, conscripted, and off and paid the ultimate sacrifice. So I think it is worth remembering them, and it is worth remembering their sacrifices.
I think you're right, mate. I was the same. I went to a local one, which was good. Yeah, good turnout. Cadets were there as well, which is nice. And I think there's an interesting point there. The people that died in the wars, they were conscripts. We can make the argument now that the history of the volunteer army, which has heavily influenced the recruiting efforts in low-paid and deprived areas, people with little or no other choice. And I think we need to make that distinction. The people that start the wars are really the people that have to go and fight them.
Yeah.
So regardless of your politics, the people that come back broken or not so great do deserve our support, I think, because it's the heartless Westminster government that sent them. You've got to give them some empathy at least.
Absolutely.
So Remembrance Day, it's a time where certainly for me, I remember the people that I've known during my time in the forces that sadly didn't make it back. But we move forward. We move forward because that's partly what they serve for the continuation of democracy within not just the UK but the world at large.
And that seems to be under more pressure than I think I've ever seen it. The sort of democratic model throughout the world, with the, as you mentioned, the re-emergence and the re-election of one of your favourite characters.
Honestly, mate, we spoke about this before. I was honestly the other day I was just like, I just give up. Honestly, why are we trying to save people that clearly don't want to be saved? The people that voted for Trump in the red states are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of it. They really are. And I was saying before, I'm quite glad in a way that actually we don't have a Tory government while Trump is in the White House. Because there was just you've seen it now, the sycophants have been over there. Farage has been over there, kissing the ring. Yes, and the innuendo is meant there.
I think Kevin's backstage giving it, don't say that.
But it's worrying. It's worrying, honestly. And I looked at the results, and Trump didn't get any more votes than he did in 2016. 2020. What happened was, the same as in 2016, the Democrat vote just didn't show up. I think 2012 would have been the one before that, wouldn't it? There was something like 81 million. Then 2016 it disappeared. It came back in 2020 and disappeared again in 2024.
Yeah,
so it's just not showing up.
Yeah, and that's surprising, because that had to have been then the Democrat in those red states. I mean, take away the West Coast and the East Coast. It's so wonderfully described to me through the week there by someone that's travelled quite extensively in the US, both intercity and taking his motorbike out on their wonderfully long highways and doing the touristy thing. The money is very much East Coast and on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And the middle ground, all those red states, I guess, as they call them now, are the ones that are financially crippled, and they will continually be crippled by this guy's policies.
Oh, you're right, mate. And part of it may be the Democrat vote not showing up, or part of it may be the concerted efforts by the Republicans over the last few years to gerrymander the voting districts to suppress votes from the areas they don't like. That may have been successful. And let's not forget, Evelyn there mentions, Musk now being in cahoots with Trump. He had, the biggest propaganda machine in the world moving forward.
Yeah.
During that. And I should have learned my lesson. I should have learned my lesson in 2016, mate, when I was watching the presidential debates and thinking, no one's going to vote for that muppet. He's clearly a buffoon. And then he got in, and I was like, yeah, that's an aberration. That can't happen again. I'm just going to keep my gob shut from now on, I think.
There you have it, folks. We've finally rooted out the true cause of Donald Trump being elected, not once but twice. It is, in fact, our friend Russ here.
Full responsibility, mate, for all of that. But as I say, I worry that globally, the world is drifting to the right. Yeah. Because what Trump will do is, even if he sits and does nothing for 4 years, it emboldens the other right-wing governments in the world.
Yeah.
Your Orbans and people like that keep doing it. Don't be surprised if, and I hate to say this, but don't be surprised if the funding is pulled from Ukraine and Putin just rolls in.
Yes. Yeah, that is a big thing that will most definitely happen. I know Biden at this moment in time, according to reports, is trying to put in place funding and stuff like that cannot be stopped. How he's going to do that, I don't know. With the both houses now in the hands of the Republicans. Anyway,
I think the only glimmer of hope is that they have the midterms in 2 years.
Right.
So where certain state Senate and congressional seats change or are up for re-election, so there is a chance that maybe the Democrats get control of one of those or both of those back in 2 years. But Trump can do a lot of damage in 2 years, mate.
Yeah. I mean, Putin will be sitting in Kiev by that time.
Yeah, there was somebody said, Trump didn't start any wars the 4 years he was in power. Yeah, it's because he didn't care, because the people that were kicking arse were his mates.
Yeah. I just seem to think that what we're seeing with the US now, or with those in charge of the US now, is them slipping back to what they were like in the period between the end of the First World War and the start of the Second World War.
Yeah.
Whereas they did very much isolate themselves from the rest of the world.
Well, yes, but then they had the stock market crash, mate, in the middle of that. Yeah, so you don't want to repeat that shit, do they?
Yeah, very much so. Yes, they were keeping their eye on what the Imperial Japanese were up to, both especially when they invaded China. Because obviously the Americans had that non-colony called the Philippines, which they seem to gloss over. It was actually one of their colonies. So yeah, I think Trump is trying to get, I don't, back to that possibly. I'm desperately trying not to put my mind in the mind of President-elect Trump, because I think that's a very scary place to go.
be. And we made a comment earlier, didn't we? Trump is now the oldest individual ever to be elected to the office of US president. He's 78 years old. He's clearly not the healthiest looking mother on the planet.
No, that look at jaundice has got. Yeah.
Are we looking at President Vance
Yeah.
in the next year or two?
Yeah.
And is that a bigger worry?
I mean, that's the other thing about this. I mean, he was getting, his early speeches about how Biden was too old to be president. Hello. Yeah. What have you just voted for right there? Yeah.
A good quote there from Hash. Said Bishop Talbot Swan said, "You didn't vote for Donald Trump because prices are too high. You all voted for him because your morals are too low."
Oh, I love that statement. Oh, I love that debate.
I do like that, but again, I'm surprised because I thought Kamala's message was really, really strong.
Yeah, it was.
And part of it, and there was that aspect of there's not much of a divide policy-wise in America between the Democrats and Republicans. I'm sorry, they're not left and right. The Democrats are pretty much a central party, and Republicans are sort of centre right. There's not a massive difference between them compared to UK politics.
Yeah.
But that aspect, they both supported the continuation of supporting Israel. They both jumped on the anti-immigration bandwagon, not quite as heavy as one another, but it'll be interesting to see whether America survives another 4 years of Trump, whether the UK survives another 4 years of Trump.
Well, fortunately, we've got the Labour government in. So,
fortunately,
and I thought I had, when I got up this morning, I had no idea at all I would ever say that at a live microphone. We are fortunate, folks. We have got a Labour government in, because at least it's not Boris Johnson or the new Tory leader,
Kemi,
that's it, yeah.
Kemi, yes. Who got in by being the most right wing of the right wingers.
Yes.
And again, we spoke about this as well. The aspect of they were being interviewed by the media as if they were going to be prime minister. What are your views on this? What are your views on that? There's 5 years before they even got a sniff at it. Do you know what I mean? Their views on these don't actually matter, but they were given serious airtime, like the BBC and the mainstream media always do. That's why Farage was a non-entity politically. He absolutely was. UKIP, probably. I don't want to cast aspersions, but he was always been very on the far right. Was a non-entity. Got representation in the EU Parliament because of the PR stuff, but it was magnified and amplified by the media. BBC have been on Question Time more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And I get why they do it, because he draws viewing figures, because he's a polarizing figure. But it normalizes that stuff, and you're seeing now what happens when you normalize that. You end up getting riots and people going to half cock because of lies and innuendo.
Yep, they set fire to hotels with people in them. Not immigrants, not asylum seekers, people. But that's what they're like. That's what. Again, they're feeling emboldened. They feel that they have the right to take to the streets just because Labour won the general election, and no serious, credible person has said that the UK election was fixed in any way, shape, form, or manner. Yeah. So
they're out there though. There are people out there that do though.
Oh, of course there is. Yes, they do. And they are so far down the rabbit hole. Thunderbirds couldn't go down and rescue them.
So what do we reckon? So the Labour's in power now. It's been what, 4 months?
Yep.
4 months.
And they've had their first budget.
Yeah, the first budget in over 14 years, as you said in the intro.
Yeah.
How did they do, do you think?
I'm still working my way through it. I'm looking at how it affects Scotland. Yeah, and they have actually promised to increase the money given to Scotland in real terms. But yeah, that's a Westminster promise. And hands up, anybody listening in to this show that has ever been let down by a Westminster promise. Yeah, right. So they have promised to increase the money that is coming to Scotland in real terms. The fact that is the big corporate farmers are up in arms about things is always a good indicator that they're hitting the right target. Yeah. I don't think they've closed any of the loopholes on tax, have they?
No, I don't. I think what I'm disappointed about is that the tax brackets haven't changed. What I mean by that is the level at which you don't pay tax, which is still at correct me if I'm wrong, still around the 12,500 mark. That's not changed in about 8 years, is it? 10 years. So the truth is, giving people small tax breaks doesn't make up for that. The truth is that you're paying more at the level because the cost of living's gone up. So you're just paying it back in tax, and it's they should have moved. They could have done a lot better, but as you say, they're dealing with, 14 years of Tory austerity, where they've just enriched themselves.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. It's only, as you say, it's only been 4 months. So I'm willing to give them a shot. I'm willing to give them a year or so.
It'll take a year before anything becomes clear anyway.
Yeah. It did, mate. It did. I remember the heady days of Blair in '97, with all the optimism and the hope. And to be fair, they did okay for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it was the second half of that where they got their noses in the trough and realised that they could live like kings without having to worry about us plebs.
Yeah, and that's something that I've sort of noticed that's been strangely missing from all political parties at this moment in time. What happened to all that money that the Tories squandered? Who's been held responsible for that?
Yeah, no one, mate. No one. Michelle Mone still seems to be floating around with all her dodgy PPE money.
Yeah, and then they had the ferries thing that they gave the contract to a company that didn't have ferries.
Yeah.
They didn't have any ships, right? And then the money that has gone to Rwanda, and that was on a non-starter thing, and yet one of those bigoted, twisted people is actually back in the shadow cabinet. I know Patel has re-emerged again.
Oh, mate. It's I seen a thing. So it was the cenotaph yesterday, where they pointed out there was like nine serving or former prime ministers, in one place, and it was actually an American commentator that pointed out, yeah, but you had like 6 in 2 years. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of cheating a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it skewed the figures a little bit there.
That's not like, oh, there's 100 years with the prime ministers there, mate. No, that's like one Tory term there.
Oh, don't tell me Liz Truss was there, was she?
Yeah.
Oh, grief.
Yeah. Theresa May was there, Liz Truss, Boris, and others that I don't remember.
Boris Johnson at the cenotaph. This was the guy that was in charge. Yeah, this was the guy that was in charge at the fiasco at Kabul airport.
Yeah,
he was in charge of the final days of the British deployment in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's got a nerve to show up at the cenotaph. Yeah, it just goes to show that he has absolutely no concept of wrongdoing.
Just going back to the budget thing, Hash asking a question there. Apparently H&M's confirmed it's going to close its Edinburgh call centre, by the end of the year with 150 job losses. Could that be due to the rise in employers' national insurance? Well, that's probably the excuse they'll use, right? But I would ask, how much do H&M currently pay its staff?
Hmm.
If
especially in call centres.
Yeah. If you're, I noticed that, you're asking, is it the right cost of the rise in employers' national insurance, or is it because the minimum wage has gone up in April to a heartwarmingly £12 something? The truth is, most of these places, most of these big retailers, and I don't know about H&M specifically, but they pay what they can get away with paying.
Yep.
And the argument is if you can't afford to pay your staff or pay what should be paid to your staff, then you can't. Then your business is not viable. And this is a UK increase. This is not. You can't hang this one on the Scottish government. This is a UK increase.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting how much whoever owns H&M, how much they take, how much the shareholders are getting every year.
Yeah, of course, they will never lose out.
But it's a good question. Good question. Yep. Even if they say it's because of that, is that true, or is that just an excuse to cut staff and go?
Yeah, they're streamlining.
Mm-hmm.
And their other call centres will pick up.
Well, we've seen there's so many call centres cutting back on staff and using automated chat for as many calls as they can.
Yes.
Hashbury, they're pointing out the federal minimum wage in the US is $7.25, which is what? I don't know, what, £6? And their workers' terms and conditions are ridiculous.
Yes.
They're not allowed to unionize in a lot of places. They get like 2 weeks holiday a year.
Yeah.
If you don't work full time, you don't get health insurance. Yeah. So a lot of these places only advertise for like 28-hour jobs a week, so you don't get health insurance. It's a dystopian nightmare, mate. In the States, honestly. If you've got a good job and you've got sort of semi-professionally qualified, you'll be laughing.
Yeah.
Until you get ill.
Yes. You never want to become ill. That's for sure. And we're heading that way here because the NHS has been, it's been hollowed out, as we have said about all of our national institutions. The NHS, the Ministry of Defence, everything has been hollowed out. It's scandalous, and I don't know if anybody else has picked up on this, but the next Friday, this coming Friday, the Royal Army Medical Corps is to be no more. It's now going to the medical services.
It's Royal Army Medical Services, RAMS.
Yeah.
I was gutted to say that, mate. The RAMC has a proud tradition of having the most Victoria Crosses in the British Army, the RAMC.
Yep.
It guts me. And even if they were going to combine, the dentists and the QAs and the nurses, why they couldn't have just left it as the Royal Army Medical Corps?
Yeah. It covers all the bases.
Yeah.
Medical and it's a corps.
Yeah.
Just absorb the dentists and the nursing corps and well, obviously the nursing corps and the dental corps had their say and apparently the King, it was supposed to be announced earlier on. I think it was last Christmas, in fact, but the King wasn't too impressed with something or another. So it got postponed. So next Friday, I will be raising a glass of port to my old corps, the Royal Army Medical Corps.
We've seen privatising the Royal Army Medical Services.
I think he's still on about the NHS.
But having said that, a lot of the medical staff in the medical corps, a lot of the doctors and nurses actually work for the NHS as well.
Yes, they do. I've got friends who are still within the field units, and all theirs of mid-range, top-range boys and girls are all NHS. Well, they pick up paycheck from the NHS basically, and then come in and do their number of days in the reserves. But yes, it is that way. But they're struggling all the same. They're still struggling. I would not like to hazard a guess about how poorly we could look after folks in time of war now. I mean, the guys and girls on the ground would do their utmost and their best as always, but the resources are just not there to cope with the expected flood of casualties. Because again, it's all been hollowed out. And Russ, have you been watching that time?
I have, mate. I have, and what you say, mate. We wish there wasn't a Remembrance Day. We wish there'd been a period of such an extraordinary length of time that losing people in conflict and war was such a distant memory that we didn't see the point of having a Remembrance Day anymore. And the truth is, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
They're cutting the forces, cutting services, cutting resources, while still joining up for these foreign adventures.
Yeah.
And getting involved in other countries' conflicts.
Yeah.
And America going to the right, Israel emboldened, Russia emboldened, China just sitting there waiting to get pissed off a little bit before they go, sod it, let's go.
Yeah.
You've got to be wary, mate. You've got to be wary about what's going on.
Yes.
Because we are, at the end of the day, we are an insignificant little island.
Yeah.
On the edge of Europe.
Yeah, we're the America's unsinkable aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And and there's some of our West Coast inlets are good at hiding their subs.
And people say it'll never happen in the UK. I was chatting to somebody not a week ago, who said, they celebrate Liberation Day in May, and you're thinking, oh, is that some sort of country that was? No, that was somebody that lives in Jersey, mate.
Yeah.
British Crown dependency that was occupied by the Germans during World War II.
Channel Islands, yep.
Literally part of the UK. And if you can look on Google, there's a photo there of a German soldier in Jersey stood next to a British bobby.
Yep.
With the tit on his head and that. Police helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it can happen, and unfortunately, I think it is going to happen.
Yeah,
that the rise of the right in Europe now will take its lead from Trump.
Going back to the NHS, there, mate, Hashby saying that the senior doctors across Scotland accepted a 10.5% pay offer, which you see them earn between 10k and 13,500 more each year. Okay, probably a good thing to retain your senior staff. I would have loved to have seen that spread a bit more evenly along, not just nurses and other doctors, but amongst the nursing assistants, the care staff, the janitors, the health workers,
support staff.
Yeah, definitely. They're the ones that get stiff, mate. They're the ones that keep the hospital running.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see whether we can maintain that. But yes. Well, you're right, Cliff. It is 29 minutes past the hour. We have but mere seconds left on the air.
That's another show that's flown in.
Yeah.
I demand a recount on the minutes that we're doing.
Yeah.
I think Trump's interfering with our time or our clock.
Yeah. Alex quickly saying they're 5% rise for the lowest band in NHS. The good thing about the Scottish NHS is that we scrapped band 1. Is that the lowest paid in NHS Scotland is band 2.
Right.
So they scrapped band 1. No one's on that, so that's good. And a nice final word from Joe there saying, keep up the good work, lads. Joe, you're always welcome, mate.
Cheers for that, Joe.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again this week. Any final words, Cliff?
Let's keep positive, folks. Let's keep positive. Let's keep thinking. Let's keep striving for what we're after. We're after for a fair, free, independent Scotland within the group of nations that make up the world. Let's get Westminster the heck, right? And let's stand on our feet, because no credible politician has ever turned around and said Scotland would be broke on independence. Yeah, and the financial figures for that are out there, folks. So we could be a quite happy little independent country, and then we wouldn't have to worry about what Westminster's getting up to,
or the US.
or the US.
We could sit back like comfortable, like happy little Ireland does, and just laugh and point.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, Russ.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you same time next month. All the best.
Yeah, all the best, folks. See you next month.
Bye for now. Bye.